Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mindset by Dave podcast. On today's podcast, we are talking about the following topic: that you are not entitled to someone's downtime. So hey everybody, and welcome back. It's been a long ass time since I've done a solo show. We've got a great show coming up later in the week with King's Court, talking about being a parent of children with autism. Absolutely amazing episode. Really enjoyed recording it a couple of weeks back. But this particular topic today is something that I really wanted to just get into, and it was something that I've been thinking about for a very, very long time, and wasn't 100% sure on exactly how I was going to word it. And then this morning, I was flicking through Instagram, and my friend Katie had posted something from an account called The Wild Watsons. And it says, if a friend hasn't responded to my text, but I see them active on social media, it's probably because they are overtired, overworked, and taking a well-deserved break to scroll. You're not entitled to someone's downtime. True friends understand that you can't pour from an empty cup. And I was just like, that's it. That's the title I've been looking for all this time. You're not entitled to someone's downtime. And if you're a regular listener of this show or a regular viewer of things on Twitch, you'd know that I wouldn't normally go for such an aggressive sounding title. Because normally I'd probably rewrite it and put it the other way around and say no one else is entitled to your downtime. I'd normally put it that way around, but you know what? I want to put it this way around because I want us to all sit and think about this a little bit. And if you followed my stuff for a while, you may have heard me talking about a concept called filling in the blanks. And the concept called filling in the blanks, this short version of it is quite simply the difference between when we used to phone somebody on the house phone and the difference between when we phone someone on the mobile phone. And if we phone someone on the house phone, they don't answer, we assume that they are busy. They're out, someone, they're not anywhere near the phone. They didn't get to the phone in time, whatever it might be. We always assume that it's about them, that they can't get to the phone, and we get on with our lives. We put the phone down and we get on with our lives. Then when you do the mobile phone, the second that they don't answer the mobile phone, we now assume that they hate us. They have a problem with us, like we've done something to upset this person. And basically, the whole scenario, the whole conversation, the whole story changes inside our own minds. Now, when it comes to someone's downtime, this can be something that we really do as well, in the fact that basically, if you think about it, if you were to send a message to a friend, they didn't reply, but then you saw that they were actively posting on Instagram, or they were actively posting on Snapchat, or somewhere where there's a story or something like that. One of the big issues that we can pick up on there is that we now, we fill in the blanks and we tell ourselves a story of they've not got time to reply to me, but they've got time to do all of this. And this is why I actually really wanted to call this episode, You're Not Entitled to Somebody Else's Downtime. Because we do have this whole thing where immediately once we see somebody doing something else, when they're not replying to us, we feel put out. In reality, that person could have 10, 15, 20 people asking for their time at that period in time. And that person might be choosing to do something else rather than speak to any of those people right now. That person, and I've been that person may have just wanted to kind of separate their time out to, I'm going to reply to people at this time versus this is my time for just having a quick scroll. I've got 20 seconds, or I just want to post a picture of my food and then move on. I've got this amount of time right now, and that's all I want to do. And I know I've got 5 unread messages in WhatsApp, and I've got 4 unread messages in Instagram, or whatever it might be. And I know that I like to do this. I like to compartmentalize those things. I like to spend a bit of time replying to messages in bulk, and then have that sort of window, that blocked out bit of time. And then other periods of time are for other things. Now, it could just be I was scrolling while I was on the loo. Let's face it, most of us do it. And not being in message reply mode at that point. But this is why I bring up the filling in the blanks. We fill in the blanks, and ultimately we make it about us instead of about them. The same as the house phone and the mobile phone. We make it about us. We take it as if we're not important enough. And in reality, it's more to do with the actual fact that how another person chooses to spend their time is actually down to them. It's up to them. It doesn't mean that we are not as important as whatever they are choosing to do at that period of time. And we need to kind of basically, this is why I've put it this way around. We are not entitled to anyone else's downtime. How a person chooses to spend that downtime, it's not for us to dictate. You know, if a person, like, there's one thing I was going to save this to the end, but here's the thing, like, here's one big thing to kind of think of is, and this is something I had to realize when I first got into being self-employed. When I became self-employed, I would reply to people on every bit of downtime I had. And I would reply to people as soon as the messages came in because, well, sometimes if I don't, I forget. I need to leave things on unread. If I'm ever going to get back to them. But the thing is, if I was working, let's say I was a personal trainer when I was first kind of self-employed and busy, if I was with 7 clients in a row, I wouldn't feel bad in the slightest about the fact that I hadn't replied to somebody who had messaged me during those 7 hours, right? Because as far in my head, the fact that I am with other people, giving them my attention in that moment in time, was enough, was that's where I should be. That's where my attention should have been at that particular moment in time. And I didn't feel bad at all. However, then I'd be sat having dinner with my family, or I'd be sat watching TV with my wife. And now I'm not doing something that is, or I'd even be sat playing a video game, having my own downtime, right? And now, because I'm not doing work, I treated my own downtime as if it wasn't as important as the work I do. And let's face it, we all talk about burnout. We all talk about this toxic productivity, that productivity culture that's out there at the minute, and it's not really helpful to practically anybody. We talk about these things all the time. And the antidote to all of this is being able to sort of have our downtime how we want to have our downtime and not feel guilty about it. If I don't reply to somebody because I am having dinner with my family, that is just as important, if not actually more important, than me not replying to somebody because I was one-to-one with a client. It's like my downtime, I shouldn't have to, if, for example, let's say you don't want to go to a party, you don't want to go to a social gathering, right? We always feel this need to justify why we don't want to go, when I don't want to go is enough justification in itself. You know that expression, no is a complete sentence. I don't want to go to this is a complete and utter reason, not just an excuse. We always feel like we have to, if someone asks us to do something, we have to have a why not. We have to have that in our back pocket. We have to justify why we are choosing to spend our time doing, other than capitulating to what this person wants for us. And the fact that you just don't want to go to something, or you don't have to, or you're tired, or whatever it might be, those things need to be enough in themselves. A person doesn't need to justify why they need downtime. And they definitely do not need to justify what they are doing with that downtime. And the reason I want us to be more understanding and accepting of this ourselves to other people and their downtime is because I want this to work both ways. I want everybody else to be as understanding and as acceptable to how you choose to spend your downtime too. No, because in order for you to 100% know that you do not need to justify your downtime to anybody, then it needs to be equally true that nobody else has to justify their downtime to you. We can't pick and choose on this one. We have to, it has to work both ways. There has to be give and take. And I think technology has certainly kind of played its role in all of this. Technology has changed the way that we expect when a person should be available. When historically, if someone was available, we'd see them face to face, or we'd get them on the house phone or whatever it might be. And then we wouldn't have expected them to be available. Historically, you wouldn't have expected a friend to be available all throughout their working day. If someone was in an office or in a bank or in a shop, yeah, sure, you could go in, in that shop, you could go up, you could queue up, you could buy yourself some chewing gum, and you could have a brief conversation with that friend. But you wouldn't expect that friend to be like, you wouldn't stand in the shop and expect that friend to be constantly talking to you whilst they're serving customers, would you? But now, because of the mobile phone, we expect people to be available 100% of the day. Email came along and we expected people to be available more regularly. Then MSN Messenger and things like that came along, and then they told us when we were online. So it's like, if you assume then that if someone's online, they're available, when in reality, even back then, this problem existed there. Because if someone was in a conversation with somebody else already, then they might be online, but they're probably not available. And they might not be able to give your conversation the 100% attention that you had back when it was just a one-to-one conversation that you were having with a person in the room. Technology evolved, and our desire for our communication to basically accept, we wanted our communication, we wanted both sides of this. We wanted our communication to follow the old rules, but embracing the new technology. We wanted a person that is at the other end of a bunch of internet cables somewhere to be as fully attentive to us as the person that was in the same room as us 100% of the time. And then obviously technology moved forward again. Facebook came along, but it was originally on a laptop or whatever it might, or on a computer. It wasn't on our phones to start off with. So again, you had periods of the day that you would be available for. That's when people can expect to get you. People wouldn't have expected to phone you on the house phone at 2:00 in the morning. But if they come on and see that you're online, then at 2:00 in the morning, then they will send you messages. I get this all the time because I'm a lazy ass bugger that never closes things down. I leave my Discord open. I quite often, last year, I had this thing where I was playing a lot of Call of Duty, so I would leave Discord open, and I would also leave Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War open. Because I didn't want to deal with the loading screen when I came on to play in the morning. So I'd leave it open the night before and just switch the monitors off on my computer. So basically, because the program was still running and Discord was still running, I'd wake up to messages from people saying, "What are you doing playing Call of Duty at 3 a.m.?" The thing is, I wasn't. But the technology suggested that I was, and that person was like, well, if they're playing Call of Duty at 3 a.m., they're available at 3 a.m., right? And there's a lot of these things that we do. We fill in these stories. If that person now probably thinks about it and goes, why didn't they reply to me? They're online, they're available, and they didn't reply to me. What's wrong? We go back to this fill in the blanks thing. And obviously now we're at the stage where we all carry most of our social media devices or connections right in our pocket with us. So we're expected to be available 100% of the time. And when we don't reply to somebody, it's not just like, oh, maybe they're not available right now. It's they hate me. They have a problem with me. They're ignoring me. And this is all well and good when a person can sit around and say, well, actually, no, I was doing this at the time. I was doing that at the time. I was busy with this. And again, we go back to this idea that we need to justify what we're doing with our time. I didn't reply to you because of this. I would say this to clients now. It's like if I didn't get back to a client in time, I'd say, basically I'd have to feel like I'd have to justify as to why I didn't get back to them. And saying around to a client and saying, I didn't get back to you because I was burnt out and I needed some time off. It's still not accepted enough. It's still not at the level where people go, okay, that's fair. And I think we need to get there. We need to get to the point where it is acceptable enough for a person to say, if someone says to you, why, you were online, why didn't you reply to me? First of all, we shouldn't be asking those questions in the first place. Let a person live their life online the way they want to. Let a person reply in their own time. It's like literally kind of expecting a reply in our time or because a person appears to be available. Doesn't mean that we have to. It doesn't mean that they have to. They have to respond to us in that period of time. That person could just be, enjoying a little bit of downtime themselves, just trying to like be a little bit mindless on social media for a little bit of time, not have the spoons or the energy or the attention span at that point to be able to answer the question that you might have sent them. The kind of culmination of that fill in the blanks talk that I normally give is afterwards I would ask a person, have you ever received a message from a person who, have you ever received a message from somebody and you've just been like, it takes more than a yes or no answer, and you've just been about to get in the car or go to work, or you've just bumped into someone in real life, or you're just about to sit down and have your dinner, and you open the message and you think, oh, that requires more than a yes or no answer. I'll respond to that yes later. You get the entire room of people just nodding at you at this point. And then I usually leave a little sinister pause and then just go, ever forgotten? And that's usually the point at which the penny drops, because we realize that quite often we will forget to reply to somebody because in the moment that they sent it, we were preoccupied, we were busy. And now that the notification's gone, we've forgotten about it because we were probably never designed to follow this many links. There's something called, I think it's a Dunbar's number, I think it is. It's either the Dunbar's number, I think, is the one where it says we're made for about 150 meaningful connections. And yet we all try to connect with absolutely everybody all the time, everywhere. And that's the whole thing, is that your friend out there that you think, okay, they've not responded to me, but they're on Instagram. They've not responded to me, but they're writing a post. I've actually been accused of this bunches of times in the past. And it's like, okay, I had 10 minutes to do something between two clients once, and I needed to get an Instagram post out for that day. So I spent those 10 minutes doing that post. And then I had people say, oh, you didn't reply to me earlier today, and I saw you posted it this time. It's like, we've got to stop doing this to people. We've got to stop doing this to people. We've got to stop thinking that the second that they are available, they should be responding to you, because you've got absolutely no idea what else that person needs to respond to, or whether that person just needs a break from responding altogether. No one has to, you don't have to justify your downtime to anybody else, and nobody has to justify their downtime to you. And it kind of, it takes me back to something that a long time ago, well, I'll say a long time ago, about a year ago, a guy called Jigs said on my podcast, which is, people aren't against you, they're just for themselves. When somebody doesn't respond to you when they are taking that time on social media, it doesn't mean there is a problem with you. It doesn't mean that they don't like you. It doesn't mean that they're ignoring you. It means that they are choosing to spend their time how they want to in that moment. And that is 100% valid, and not for us to be contesting. It's just not. It causes problems. It causes rifts. And if we can't accept that within relationships, eventually those relationships might not be there, because ultimately we're expecting a person to respond to our rhythm and not to their own. And in that situation, again, it works both ways. Your rhythm doesn't, it's not that their rhythm doesn't match yours and they're wrong. It's not that your rhythm doesn't match theirs and you're wrong. It's that the two rhythms don't match each other. And that's okay. That's okay. Not everyone's rhythm in relationships and in friendships has to match. But we have to be okay with the amount of mismatch that is there. Just one final note on this. The kind of point of that is, don't take it personally when someone, don't make that story all about they hate me. Don't make it that. Convert that story in your head to they're busy or they just need to relax. How they spend their downtime is completely and utterly down to them. The final point I want to make about all this is, I actually want to take it back to before technology got involved in all this. And I want to kind of ask you a hypothetical question, or is it a rhetorical question? I don't know. Is, if you were to walk into a cafe, because obviously we're thinking about all this with phones and all those different connections, right? But if you were to walk into a cafe and you were to see one of your friends there and they were sat on their own and they were reading a book, are you supposed to go over, plant yourself at their table and just assume that they want to talk to you? Would you, if they carried on reading their book, feel upset or feel offended? Because that question, I think, really gets to the heart of it, because that might be the only piece of downtime that person's had that week. They may be in a household where everyone wants their attention. I know that. I know what that's like, because in my household, most people want mine. And that's, my kids are only here half the week. So I get only one person. I mean, Alona doesn't want my attention 100% of the time. She'd be mortified if she thought I thought that. But when they're all here, then it can be like the revolving door. One person wants the attention after the next, after the next, after the next. And I get 4 days a week reprieve from that because my kids live with their mum half the time. But to a lot of people out there, they don't get any reprieve from that whatsoever. And that they're choosing to take themselves out of their home environment to go and sit in that cafe and read a book because they know they won't get disturbed there. And here's the thing, that's okay. If that person wanted to do that and you just happen to walk in and be in that cafe as well, in that real life scenario, you're not entitled to their downtime either. If that ever does come up, by the way, I would say don't, I was going to say, when I thought about this particular point earlier on when I was prepping for this podcast, I thought, is the right thing to do to ask them whether they want the company or not? Not necessarily, because most super polite people pleasers would say, yeah, of course, come and sit, when what they really mean is, bugger off, I want to read. I would say if that situation comes along, wait for them to invite you. Wait for them to ask you if you want to come and sit with them. And if they don't, it's nothing personal. It's not that they're being against you. It's just that they're being for themselves. Again, just to completely and utterly say it one more time before we finish, nobody is entitled to your downtime. You do not need to give an explanation or an excuse as to how you spend your time to anybody. However, for that to be true, then nobody else owes you an explanation or an excuse for how they spend theirs. Thanks for listening, and I will see you all on the next one.